the cloud. Okay, and now we're recording.
Yeah. Got 9 participants so far, 10, 11, 12, there we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will just give it a minute because I see that we still have participants logging on. So in about a minute, we will start with the public open house. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to get started. So I want to say hello to everyone and thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Stev Andis and I am the manager of planning for the town. I'll be facilitating tonight's public open house, and with me in attendance is Caitlin Grout. She is the development planner with the town who is responsible for processing the application for 310 Kingston Road East. We also have Mike Sawchuk, heritage planner with the town, who is helping me produce and manage this webinar. From Ajax Council, we have Ward 2 Regional Councillor Sterling Lee. We have Ward 2 Councillor Ashmead Khan. Ward 3 Councillor Joanne Dyes. And Regional Councillor Joanne Dyes, and Ward 3 Councillor Lisa Bauer. Lisa Bauer is going to be with us until 8 o'clock, and then she has to jump over to another meeting. We also have the landowners and applicants for the proposed development. We have Max Tarski and Dennis Tarski of Promita Holdings Limited. And we also have Mike Manette from M Plan Incorporated, who is the applicant's planning consultant. So the town is in receipt of and currently reviewing an official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and site plan for 310 Kingston Road East, which along with supporting reports and studies have been posted on the town's IMO page. I want to thank everyone who's taken the time to provide their comments already via the town's IMO page and also via email on these applications. The purpose of this open house is to provide you with an opportunity to engage the applicants and their consultant and provide them with your feedback and ask them questions. The town staff are here to gather your comments on the applications, and we'll be preparing a staff recommendation report on the applications for a meeting of the town's Community Affairs and Planning Committee, which will be sometime in the spring. Caitlin will be providing an overview of the applications, and her presentation will be followed by a Q&A period. Before we start the presentation, I'm going to go over some functionality of the webinar and the Q&A. As participants, your mics and cameras are automatically disabled. If you wish to ask a question, you can either type it by accessing the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and I will read out each question as we go through them. Or you can raise your hand by using the hand icon at the bottom of the screen, and I will enable your microphone for you to speak. When I do this, you'll receive a pop-up message advising you you've been unmuted, and you can turn your mic on. After your question has been answered, I will disable your mic before moving on to the next question. Your video will remain disabled throughout the entire webinar. I'll alternate between those who wish to speak and the typed questions. Now, we are relatively a small group. We have about 26 people who have registered. But for those that wish to speak, what I will be doing is I will be limiting your initial questions to approximately 5 minutes to ensure that we address as many people that want to speak and answer as many of the typed questions as possible. If there's time left over in the open house, we can circle back to those who want to continue with their questions and comments. If we're unable to answer any of your questions today, or if we're unable to get to all the typed questions, we'll provide answers to you after the open house. I would like to note that this open house is being recorded and that it will be posted on the IMO page next week for those who were unable to attend tonight. We will continue to accept your comments after this meeting, so please feel free to provide additional comments in writing on the IMO page or via email to Caitlin. And now I'll turn it over to Caitlin for the presentation.
Perfect. Thanks, Dev. And just to confirm, everyone can still see the PowerPoint. Okay, perfect. So as Dev indicated, my name is Caitlin Grope. I'm the development planner with the town of Ajax that is handling this file. My presentation will provide an overview of the applicant's proposed applications. So starting out, the subject lands highlighted in a red outline on this map are located at 310 Kingston Road East, on the north side of Kingston Road, located east of Salem Drive. To the north of the subject lands is the Hicksite Cemetery. Further north and to the east is Peacock Farms property. To the west is the Ryokan Plaza, including Walmart. And to the south of the subject lands is Wicks Drive, which includes an existing subdivision, as well as the Whitetail Center Plaza. So the following applications have been submitted to the town by Promita Holdings Limited, Official Plan Amendment OPA 20-A4. And this application is requesting permission for a maximum floor plate size of 1,520 square meters, whereas the official plan permits a maximum floor plate size of 800 square meters. It's also requesting, or rather to require, a minimum of 50% of all residential units to have a barrier-free design as defined by provincial standards. And lastly, to require a minimum of 7% of all residential units to be comprised of 3 or more bedrooms. Zoning bylaw amendment Z5/17 proposes to implement site-specific development standards, including maximum height, minimum setbacks, maximum floor plate sizes, and parking provisions. And lastly, site plan application SP8/17 covers the detailed site design and layout, elevations and architectural design, landscaping and engineering requirements, as well as site circulation and functionality. The following studies and reports have been submitted by the applicants in support of the application, and they include a planning justification report, urban design guidelines, stormwater management and functional servicing report, hydrogeological assessment, stage 1 and stage 2 archaeological assessment, cemetery conservation plan, arborist report, shadow study and analysis, traffic and parking study, as well as a waste management plan. And an overview of the development proposal. The applicants are proposing a 25-story, 349 residential unit apartment building, which also includes 9 ground floor commercial units, which you can see in the elevation on the right-hand side of the screen. The residential units are proposed to be rental. The proposal includes 394 parking spaces. 349 parking spaces are allocated for the residential units, and 45 parking spaces are allocated for both visitor and commercial unit use. Of the 349 residential units, the applicants have indicated to the town that they are hoping to offer out 110 of those units at an affordable rental rate. That's subject to receiving CMHC funding. The proposal also includes provision of family-sized units, so larger sized units with 3 bedrooms, as well as barrier-free units. The building code requires 15% of units to be barrier-free, and the applicants are proposing to provide approximately 57% of the units as barrier-free units. And lastly, the property does slope down from west to east, so you can see in the elevation on the right-hand side of the screen that change in elevation. And moving on to the site access and circulation. So this slide shows the proposed site plan overlaid on an aerial image. And this illustrates the location of the driveway access to the subject lands. So the, an easement agreement for access to the site will be required and will need to be entered into with Ryokan, which is the neighboring property owner. They own the property immediately west of the subject lands, and the applicants are proposing to locate the site access to their site from the adjacent property. So the red rectangle on the screen right now is showing the property line. So to the left is the Ryokan property, and to the right is the subject lands 310 Kingston. The yellow shaded area and the yellow arrows are showing the proposed driveway access to the subject site. So direct access from the site from Kingston Road is not proposed. It's proposed internally from the existing driveway on the neighboring site. The orange arrow is showing the entrance and exit from the parking levels to the proposed development. And lastly, the green arrows are showing the entrance and exit from Kingston Road onto the RioCan property. Loading and garbage. So there is a loading space highlighted in red on the ground floor level inside the parking garage. There's a second loading space outside the building for larger vehicles and trucks, which is highlighted in red as well. And the elevators and moving room are located on the ground floor parking level inside the parking garage area. In terms of garbage pickup, the orange outline is the location of the concrete pad for garbage bins. On garbage pickup days, the garbage bins would be rolled out from the garbage room, which is within the first floor of the ground floor of the proposed building. The bins would be rolled out and over to the concrete pad, and then the garbage truck would need to back in to pick up the garbage and then leave the site. So this slide is just showing some of the applicant's proposed elevation renderings with various views. The front view from Kingston Road East is top left, and then the top middle and top right are also looking at the front of the building from both the east and the west sides. The bottom left is showing the back view of the building, and then the large drawing on the bottom right is showing the ground floor commercial units. In terms of landscaping, the applicants have submitted a tree inventory, preservation and removal plan, an arborist report, and a proposed landscape plan. The applicants will also be required to provide to the town tree compensation for any trees that are proposed to be removed through the development. So this slide is showing the proposed landscaping plan, which includes various plantings, trees and shrubs and other ornamental plantings. So a variety of deciduous trees will be planted along the street boulevard, so at the south side of the building and the southeast corner of the building. Along the north side of the building, at the back of the building, a row of cedar hedges is proposed to be planted between the building and the existing cemetery. On the west side of the building, which acts as the front entrance to the building, various smaller shrubs and ornamental plantings are proposed. And then further north along the west property line, a row of coniferous blue spruce trees are proposed. And so the Hicksite Cemetery is located immediately north of the proposal. It's designated under the Ontario Heritage Act, and the applicant has provided a heritage impact statement to the town to identify any impacts to the cemetery which could be caused by the proposed development. And they have also submitted a conservation plan which does address those impacts. The applicant has also completed a stage 1 and stage 2 archaeological assessment to clear portions of the property from any archaeological potential. However, due to its close proximity to a heritage cemetery, further archaeological work will be required. Shadow study. So the applicant has submitted a sun and shadow study as part of the application to demonstrate shadow impacts on surrounding properties. The applicants did prepare 2 comparative shadow renderings to demonstrate the difference between the shadow impacts of the proposed development with approximately 1,500 square meter floor plate size, as well as a development that would be approved as of right with an 800 square meter floor plate according to the current official plan and zoning requirements. So the property that is significantly impacted by shadow is the Hicksite Cemetery to the north of the property, and the applicant has addressed these impacts through the conservation plan, as I mentioned on the previous slide. The two images shown on this slide show the shadow that is cast on June 21st, which is the summer solstice date, just after 12 p.m. And then in terms of shadows to the south, this slide shows the shadow modeling for the applicant's proposed building, showing shadows cast on the existing residential area to the south during the summer solstice, which is when the shadow impacts are the most significant. The modeling shows that the shadow would begin around 6:30 p.m. and it would continue rolling in a clockwise rotation until sunset at approximately 9:01 p.m. During this time span, there are relatively few properties that are impacted by the shadow for more than 1 hour. It's also important to note that when the sun is this low in the sky, most of the residential properties would already have shadow impacts from their own dwellings or from neighboring dwellings. And there are no shadow impacts on the existing residential area during the spring and fall equinoxes and this winter solstice. So that concludes my presentation for tonight. We will now open it up to comments and questions. And as Stev mentioned at the beginning, we will be accepting comments after this session. You can submit them at the IMO page. The website is shown on the screen here, or you can also email myself, and my contact information is on the IMO page.
Perhaps we can also Max or Dennis Tarski, would either of you or Michael Manette like to add anything to Caitlin's presentation before we go to the Q&A and as people maybe are thinking about their questions?
Sure. Well, first of all, Caitlin did a great job describing project. So we just want to add to it that our intent is to create a visually pleasing, nice looking building, and you can see that this is done in such a way so it's modern building but still has a lot of classical elements to it. So to kind of we're trying to set an example to make sure that everybody gonna like this building because it's going to be standing there for many years to come. The way it's designed designed specifically to minimize use of cars. Given a location right on Kingston, right near all the public transportation and also rapid public bus transportation right at doorstep, we designed building in such a way so it's kind of appealing to the people who don't have 4 pickup trucks in a family, but to somebody who is actually don't using cars as much. So we're trying to achieve it by reducing number of parking spots. We're trying to appeal to these people by increasing amount of bicycle parkings in a building, and we have around 230 bicycle parking spots, which is a lot. Also, natural location is right next to all the shopping. So again, the idea is most of the people for their day-to-day shopping, they can just simply walk to a Walmart supermarket or to the medical clinic across the street. Commercial units on the ground level, again, will be accommodating day-to-day needs of residents. It will be on-site daycare. It will be some service shops, maybe takeout restaurant, maybe dentist. Again, something that minimizes need for the residents to travel anywhere because it's simply on their ground level right there. So that's the idea behind the design of this building.
Just to add, the overall building is designed as completely accessible, so all the common area elements are barrier-free. For the number of apartments we are currently intending to provide 59% of all units as a barrier-free. That does not mean that the units will only be provided to people currently in need of handicap access. The reasoning behind it is there is a lot of elderly population that may not need it today, but will need it in 2-3 years from now. So these particular units allow them an opportunity to stay in place as their needs may become in terms of accessibility, usually worsen, not improve. The larger units overall, in addition to 25 units, which are 3-bedroom, majority of units in a building are provided with an additional space to study or to work, which is a den, a full-size den, especially now in a COVID reality. Many people are resorting to working from home for one reason or the other. And those particular units, whatever they are, 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, most of them would provide an additional space to actually make it possible for kids to learn remotely. We just received a message that our kids do not go to school on Mondays. They're staying until January 25th at home. And we have 5 students. So we're running out of rooms to provide them for half a day to be on their computers. That's pretty much, that's all we have to say at the stage. Yeah.
And I just have a few things to add related to the planning of the project. The proposed plan has been designed to implement the provincial, the regional, and the municipal planning policies related to intensification along a regional corridor. And this also provides for the urbanization of an underused, effectively rural site to transition it into an urban land use as the town of Ajax is growing and becoming more urbanized. And the intensification along Kingston Road is something that has been waiting for some time. So hopefully this will be one of the first buildings to implement those policies at all 3 levels of government.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We have some questions that have been typed in, so I'm going to go to those questions. The first one from Keith Saar. He is asking, given the immensity of this proposal and its impact on existing residents south of the site, why was there no earlier opportunity for public comment? We now discover 3.5 years ago, the initial planning justification report was submitted. So Keith, thank you for this question. Timing, yes, there was the initial application, the zoning bylaw amendment and the site plan were initiated or were submitted back in 2017. Upon the initial review of those applications, there was some discussion back and forth between the town and the applicants, and it was determined that an official plan amendment was also required. So there was a bit of time lapse between that and getting the official plan amendment. Priorities in terms of projects, so forth with the town and with the applicants as well. So we weren't going to go to a public open house until we had all the applications at once, which is why we didn't hold an open house earlier. We have no hands up for anyone who wants to speak, so I will go to the next question that has been written. Tom Blaney asks, what about existing garbage from the store back doors? Very tight there already. Max, Dennis, or Mike, would you like to answer that?
Yes, we can answer it. Tom is referring to the stores on adjacent plaza from Ryokan. They are not part of our driveway. Whatever was shown on the site plan, our garbage pickup location is on our property. So that's another 10 meters away. We have a 10-meter wide strip going back behind the building. And that's where there is ample space for the garbage pickup truck to maneuver in, pick up the garbage and maneuver out. In addition to that, there is going to be landscaping with shrubs and trees provided to shield this whole area of park loading spot and the staging for the bins from the view from Kingston Road, view from the residential entrance. So you won't see that. You will see just a pass for a truck, and then you'll see some greenery to the right of it.
Maybe Tom is also asking about the commercial units within your building.
Commercial units within the building itself, the garbage is being used by the same service, so they will be depositing their garbage daily into the same garbage room of the building, which is air conditioned and climate controlled. And then every day, every other day, depending on the type of a garbage and in accordance with the waste management plan, it will be picked up into with the same bins as the rest of the residential garbage.
Okay, And I see that Tom has put his hand up as well. Tom, you do have another typed question, but I am going to enable your microphone. And you should be.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just wondering how wide, like the existing driveway there is just enough for one car. Like how much wider is the roadway going to be between the back of the store and the development?
Back of the store.
Tom, when you're referring to the back of the stores, you're referring to existing stores on Rio
Yes.
Grande Plaza?
Yes. It's like a one lane.
Yeah. Whatever you see at the moment, the existing lane stays because that's part of the Rio Grande property. Then there is a landscape strip of a couple of meters, which is also part of the Rio Grande property. And then our driveway starts from that point eastwards, which is another over 10 meters wide.
Right. So you will access the Rio Grande driveway.
And then we turn immediately right to access our property.
I think it's pretty tight.
The reason why it's done this way, because it's eliminating another vehicle entrance from Kingston. So the reason why we're giving up our existing vehicular access from Kingston to the property, again, it's to minimize the impact on traffic on Kingston. That's the reason behind why it's done this way. But again, it was calculated and it was checked by transportation company that we hired, transportation consultant. The company name is ICOM. They did modeling. They made sure the turn analysis. They made sure that the radius is in compliance, and it's going to be usable and easy for people to use. Yes.
Okay. And where's the garbage from the existing stores? Is it going to still be in the same spot?
You're talking about the account property?
Yes.
It is located further into their property.
Closer to their parking, a bit north from there. So
Yeah.
it will be north from proposed.
From where it is now.
I'm not sure where exactly they keep the bins, but we can only comment on where they're supposed to keep their bins and according to their site plan. So it will be way past where we separate into our site. So it will be further north.
Okay. And then I just have another question that I threw in there. I think you underestimate the amount of cars per unit. I really do.
When you try to estimate the way it is provided right now, it's one parking spot per unit. And again, I agree with you. Yeah, there are some families who may need 2 or 3 cars if they have grown-up kids living with them. But designing the whole building for somebody who is looking to take advantage of public transportation. So people who looking to take advantage of public transportation, the whole idea for them, they don't use as many cars as somebody else. They still would have maybe 1 car per family, and that's why we're providing 1 car per unit. But the whole idea is with everything at their doorstep, they can either walk to all the shopping, or can they simply ride the bus. And also the industrial area with the new Amazon warehousing coming, it's pretty much right behind the building, right behind the plaza. So even for somebody who is working in the area, they don't need a car to drive. They can either walk to work, they can bike to work. So it's a different type of people. Somebody is relying on the cars every day. They have few cars a family. They're definitely not going to go into this type of building. They will need to buy themselves a detached home so they can have 3 cars on a driveway. And then somebody else who don't need to have 3 cars on a driveway. So they're different type of people.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Tom. I'm going to disable your mic again. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we will continue with the questions. No one else has their hand up, so we do have several typed questions, but I would also like to ask our council members that are on the call, if any of you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand as well. Oh, okay. Councillor Sterling Lee.
Thanks, Dev. I just have 2 primary questions. So we are talking about trash removal, and that is a regional issue. Is trash pickup going to be private then, presumably? Because I don't think Miller Waste would be able to pull in because they want a cohesive turnaround, which, if according to your plans, I don't think you have that. So
Actually, they are the ones who prefer to try the waste removal plan, and they are the ones that we contacted. And yes, they, for example, they're one of the companies who would be willing to pick up, private pickup, because it's a mixed-use building. There is a commercial element involved, so that's why it would be commercial pickup, private pickup. And yes, actually, Miller Waste, they were the ones who submitted the waste management plan, and their trucks can pick up, no problem.
The traffic study prepared by ICOM also have maneuvering routes for the garbage truck, which takes into consideration standard truck that's functional in the area and the region. And that shows how the trucks get loading space and get out.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's a key thing, because again, I think we're seeing a lot of development in Ajax that doesn't factor in regional trash pickup. And I have an area in North Ajax myself where the residents are left with, you know, the end result of them not being able to kind of get trash at the rate they want it picked up. So I should hope that's taken care of, and it seems like it is. My next question is obviously the more pressing one, which is entering the building from a traffic point of view, because you know, it's no secret that the intersection on Salem and Kingston is probably one of the most dangerous in Durham region. It's the most accidents out of every intersection in Durham region, and you guys are right there. So I'm presuming then that if I were to go north on Salem, then go east, I would not be able to turn left into the building. Is that correct?
You can turn left into the building through the existing traffic light entrance into the Ryokan Plaza. So,
okay, so it would be done through Ryokan, because you guys have arranged.
So there is a way to access the building through the existing access points to the large Ryokan Plaza. And some of the traffic will be accessing it that way. It's just the nature of the thing. It's practically possible, so people will be accessing it. The immediate driveway that we are sharing with Ryokan right next to the building is only right in, right out. So that would be accessible for the cars going westward on Kingston Road. Or exiting to continue westward on Kingston Road. There is, at the moment, there is a dip in the median lane on Kingston that allows people to turn kind of north into the property, which is very dangerous. We ourselves never coming there. We never use this turn. We actually go further and turn around. But that would be closed off, because you don't want people trying to access it that way through this driveway. No.
And so this agreement you have with Ryokan to kind of use this little, you know, entrance,
Yes.
is that agreement forever, as long as,
Yes.
you know, or is there like a set time for
that's
that?
easement on their title, their property title, so that's a permanent thing. You can't remove it.
Okay. I just have one more question, and thank you for your patience, everyone. How is someone supposed to move their stuff into the building? Because I think, like, if I'm not mistaken, based on the site plan, like the dock is on the northmost entrance,
That's
and
it.
then
There is two separate loading docks. There is one located pretty much kind of inside the building on a ground level, right next to the elevators. And then, it was one of the slides that showed two of them. Yeah, that's the slide. That's right. So one of them is located inside the building, right next to the moving room to the elevators. And then there is another one for even larger truck, which is located in appendix. So it depends what kind of truck people using, what exactly they're moving. If they don't have enough space to put a huge truck inside the building, then they're going to be using the one in the north appendix.
and they just have to kind of walk through the corridor into like a service elevator, and then
from the internal one, there is a loading room. So they bring their stuff into the loading room to kind of buffer it up, and then they take it through the elevator upstairs. So it's inside the building, the second red square, this is the loading room. When they will be bringing stuff from the secondary loading space, they will bring it through the entrance to the garage to the same loading room. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to monopolize everyone's time, so those are my main questions. Thank you very much, and thank you, Steph.
Okay, thank you. We have a lot of typed questions, so I'm going to go back to the typed questions. We'll just ask, we'll take one or two of the typed questions, and then Councillor Khan, I will go back to you. Yes? Okay. And then we will also go, I see we have some attendees that also have their hand up. So there is the next typed question from Keith Saar. By what measure is a 25-story tower at the top of the rise west and virtually adjacent to the Carruthers Creek floodplain. I'm not quite certain, but Keith, you do have your hand up. So I think what I will do, because I think I'm not quite certain what the question is, I will enable your microphone to speak. So you can unmute yourself now, Keith.
Hello, I'm Keith Sock.
Okay.
Okay. The word out at the end for this type of development on the rise just west of the Carruthers Creek floodplain, a natural jewel that I know the town has gone to great pains to protect. We have the upstream study in progress to ensure that it's protected by development there. And now we stick a stark 25-story tower right next to it lower downstream. It doesn't seem consistent for the town to approve something like this. How do you justify doing it or considering it? I know the approval hasn't yet been granted, but can a councillor talk to this for me?
Well, perhaps I will start. I can talk about the planning framework. Maybe either Mike or Max and Dennis can speak to the stormwater controls for the building. So first of all, along the Kingston Road corridor, where this building is located, we do allow for buildings of this height. The property itself is separated from the Carruthers Creek Valley lands by the Peacock farmlands. So the direct, I guess, hydrological impact of this property's runoff is not, it wouldn't be a direct impact to the Carruthers Creek, given its distance.
If you can also add in regards to the water runoff, sewer runoff, the functional servicing plan talks to it in more details, but generally speaking, the post-development volume of runoff is equal to the pre-development volume of runoff. So once, in simple words, once you put the building up, the amount of water leaving the site through the surface is going to be the same or less than it is right now. So there is no impact on any of the adjacent properties or any properties downstream. We are building an additional cistern inside the lower levels of the building to keep any excess water at the very profound storms, in the case of storms, and discharge it at a lower rate into the municipal storm sewers.
There is also, like pretty much on the slide that you see right now, right in the appendix, in the north appendix, right next to the additional loading space, you can see there is a long strip of, call it soccer path, or it's a special granular surface under the asphalt that
acts as a storage for
Yes.
any storm water. So affecting any water features or natural features in terms of site runoff is not a concern that was addressed through the development.
Yep.
Do I still have a microphone?
Yes, you do, Keith.
Yeah, and therein lies some of the complexity here that you make mention of this cistern system in the bottom of the building where some sort of automated mechanism will be in place operating to control the flow of storm wastewater. Interestingly enough, by the way, the stormwater management pond at Gilea and south of Kingston Road, just down the way a piece, is currently blocked with beavers having built a dam in the outlet pipe. So any new water going down there is going to have a hard time. But more particularly, the design, what assurance.
Sorry, we lost audio.
You lost audio.
Keith, we lost your audio.
That designs of this nature, how's that? Is that better now?
Yes.
sorry, I guess my question at the end is, what assurance can we get from planning that designs of this complexity have a chance of actually operating reliably without fault, such that I think one of your documents and studies indicate that in the event of a failure, the stormwater would flow through a culvert through the cemetery. Surely not.
If I may, just to start at the right, it wouldn't flow through the cemetery because the topography of the site is such that anything that flows actually flows toward Kingston and flows in a culvert that runs along the north part of Kingston eastward from the site. So the cemetery would not be affected. Secondly, you bring a valid point about any engineering system may fail at the time or may just stop functioning properly. The cistern inside the building is as simple as it gets. It's pretty much the same that Romans invented 3,000 years ago. So it's non-electrical. It provides an additional storage volume for the water when there is excess levels of water. And the discharge pipe from this cistern is limited in radius, so that limits the amount of water leaving the cistern. And all that volume is calculated on 100-year-old storms. So theoretically, anything that will overflow the cistern never happened. So we are going with a system which is as reliable as it gets. It is more expensive to build it into the building as opposed to just discharge everything at whatever flow you want into the town's system. But we're limited by the regional requirements to make sure our discharges, the volume of our discharge from a 25-story building is the same as it is from the existing bungalow on the site. And that's exactly what we're providing.
Okay, Keith, if we can move on.
Then my follow-up, if I...
Could we, is it a short follow-up?
Well, we mentioned the Hicksite Cemetery, and that, of course, is a protected heritage site that the town of Ajax designated as such in 2007. What certainty or commitment does the town give that this cultural resource will be treated with the utmost respect during this proposal deliberations? It seems to me imposing in adjacent to it this 25-story edifice that'll block all the sunlight from the cemetery does not speak to the respect it deserves.
Maybe address it.
Sure. Well, it's a good point to have concern about this for sure. And what happened is we had in-depth discussion with town on how to protect the cemetery and how to improve an access to the cemetery. We hired company, I believe it's called Golden Associates. That's a company that's specializing in the archaeological studies. And they did historical study on the cemetery, and they came up with a plan, cemetery preservation plan, that actually improving cemetery with additional vegetation and improving cemetery with additional fencing, which doesn't exist right now. Also, after this development, the access to the cemetery will be way easier and more accessible for general public than it is right now, because quite frankly, I don't think many people in the area even know there. And I don't think any of them would go through the back door of a house to access it. Once it's going to be redeveloped, the cemetery will become way more visible, way more accessible for general public than it is right now. So all these concerns been addressed already.
And throughout the development, the cemetery will be protected by wooden perimeter fence. So there is not going to be any machinery or whatever accidentally stepping over to the side of the cemetery. Once we are completed, in addition to supplemental planting around the perimeter, there will be a fence erected, which will protect it further after we're done.
Mr. Sawchuk, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. So just a quick addition. I think that Max and Dennis covered most of it. But typically when we have any type of development application that's adjacent to a protected heritage property, we require a heritage impact statement. So that is something that we received through this application. And that report determined that this development would have impacts, but the impacts were limited to the shadow. So what our next steps were there was really to figure out what those impacts would look like and what they would mean. So at that point, we had the applicant work with a landscape architect to determine, with the level of shadowing that's going to result from this development, how will that impact the landscape? And the answer was the existing trees are of an age and maturity that they can actually be sustained with the less sunlight that will result from the development. So we did sort of carry this through the whole process. I can assure you that, you know, as the town's heritage planner, that's something that was very concerning to me. So we had a good, thorough look at that, and are satisfied with the results of those studies.
Okay, thank you. So Keith, I am going to disable your mic now, and we're going to move on to the next written question, and then Councillor Khan, we will go to your question, and then I will go back to Eric O'Brien, who has his hand up as well. Written question from Kofi Teti. I am assuming there will be significant drill and blasting during the construction phase of this project. What are some of the things the city and developer will do to minimize noise, dust, pollution, especially during the summer? Max and Dennis, if you'd like to start.
Sure. The topography of the site allows for minimal blast. Actually, there will be no blast, just regular earthworks. The site slopes significantly to the east. So if you look at the elevations, the underground parking is practically exposed. Those levels are treated, but exposed on the east side of the building, making any excavations not as tedious as they are in any downtown Toronto sites, where you can see high fencing and dirt and dust for 2 years for them just to go through the excavation cycle. The way we envision here, the actual excavation works will probably take around 2 months. So that's a minimal impact. The perimeter of the site will be secured. That's a requirement. So you will have a fencing going along frontage, along the perimeter, and obviously along frontage on Kingston Road. So the works inside will be shielded from the view. There will be sufficient fencing provided, sealed fencing to sort out any dust runoff with the rains or whatever from the site whenever there is earthworks on the site.
And I can just add to that a little bit from the town's perspective. So for any development at the town that does require a site plan agreement, as this development would, if it is approved, through that agreement, standard clauses that are included would be relating to the construction, and the town would have securities that would have to be submitted. There would also be clauses that speak to road cleaning, any dirt and dust and debris, as well as the construction management plan. So where construction vehicles are permitted to be located on the site, and things like that. So that would be part of the site plan agreement, which is a legal document that the developer and the town enters into.
Okay, thank you. We will go to Eric O'Brien. I am enabling your mic so you can unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I got a couple of questions here, but I'm going to focus on the one, and I've had discussions with Mike about this, but it's the 30-foot easement that I've been talking to Mike about. I'm trying to understand with this 30-foot easement, I understand that it was part of the heritage with regards to the cemetery. Is that correct?
Yes. So at the time that that the 310 Kingston lot was first developed, that left the cemetery lands landlocked. So in order to ensure that the owner to the cemetery lands had continued access, an easement agreement was struck back in the, I believe it was the mid 1960s, that would allow for permanent access from Kingston Road up to the entrance to the cemetery.
Okay, so my question now is that how did this get included into the development of this new site plan? Was this piece of land purchased by the developer, or did the town sell this piece of land to the developer?
Yeah, so the essence of an easement agreement is it's a voluntary agreement between two different parties. So the owner of the 310 Kingston lot actually owns the property beneath it. The existence of the easement agreement is just to allow the owner of the cemetery to access. And in this case, because it is a public cemetery, that allows the public to access as well. So they fully own all of the lands covered by the easement. But through this process of looking at the development, really what we had to be concerned with as a town is that that access was retained, because this is obviously an important community landmark. And as Max and Dennis had mentioned previously, currently it's really not accessible. I mean, the public does have an ability to access it through the easement, but walking or driving by the site, you really wouldn't know that because it looks like you have to enter onto somebody's property. So our main concern in terms of the easement when reviewing the application was that that path of access was maintained. And when you look at the way that the project is laid out, that does remain open. So there is a ramp, for example, from the Kingston Road sidewalk, and then the access driveways to the building itself exist on the easement lands. So there is a clear path retained, and that's really our only consideration when it comes to the easement.
But looking at the layout that they show here, they're proposed in the 30-foot easement where their garbage is going to be a concrete pad. Like they're taking up the whole length of the easement. How are people going to get into the cemetery if they want to get in there? Like, what's going to happen? How is that going to turn?
The cemetery entrance currently is at the very southern end of where the cemetery plot begins. So that's where it's proposed to continue. So even though the easement lands do extend all the way to the very north border, they really don't have to extend that long in order to perform their function of providing access. So because of that, we recognize that, you know, there's an opportunity for those lands to be used for other purposes, because the lands north of the access point really don't serve any purpose when it comes to accessing the cemetery.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I got a couple more questions. Can I go ahead, or do you want me to go back into the loop again?
Actually, Eric, if I can, if you can hold off for a second, I accidentally over Councillor Khan, and I know he has shortly. So Eric, I'll leave your mic open so you can unmute yourself for the time. And if Councillor Khan would like to go ahead with his question.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to see all this interest being taken in our cemetery. As you all know on the team, I am very concerned about the respect, and as Keith was talking about, the respect for the cemetery and the preservation of our cemetery as well. Gentlemen, you mentioned that the stages 1 and 2 of the archaeological studies were complete, and I think you will move forward to the stage 3. Can you kindly explain to us exactly what the stage 1 and stage 2 encompassed, and what the stage 3 will, please?
Sure. Stage 1 looks in general records of what items of interest, points of interest can be potentially located on the site. Usually, if there is no archaeological interest anywhere on the property historically or surrounding it, stage 2 would not be recommended. In this case, stage 2 was recommended to make sure there is nothing really on the site of archaeological value. There was a crew on site from archaeological consultant that went indeed digging all over the site. They do it in a smaller pits a few meters away. and they found nothing of major archaeological interest to warrant any stage 3 archaeological study. Having said that, the proximity of cemetery warrants an additional monitoring during excavation stage on our property, just to make sure that there's no any unmarked graves that were overlooked and are actually placed on our property unknown to us or to anybody with historical records. So during the excavation of the foundation, there will be an archaeologist present on site to monitor the 10-meter buffer between on our property line away from the cemetery to make sure there is nothing found during the excavation.
Thank you, thank you. The other question, I heard a lot of about the barrier-free units for our residents, your residents with accessibility issues. I'm very happy to see that. But you also mentioned there's something pending CMHC funding. Is this what's gonna attribute to the, did you call it affordable units, rentals? Is that what you referred to it as?
Well,
My question is, sorry, is that if that does not go through, what is your next steps?
Well, accessibility, it's part of the design of the building. That's the way building is designed. So all of the public areas in the building done in such a way so anybody can access it. Majority of the residential units in the building done in such a way so they all adaptable, barrier-free. And that's gonna stay no matter if it's being affordable rental, regular rental, or being condo. That's the way building gonna be constructed. Now, when we're talking about possibility of securing CMHC financing, that relates to us trying right now obtaining such financing so we can make it as affordable housing. So a significant portion of the building, about a third of the building, will be rented at way below market rents. For example, the 2-bedroom units apartments will be rented around $980 a month, something like this. So this is about half the price or whatever of the current market rate for the new 2-bedroom apartments on the market. That's something that we're hoping for. We're very optimistic that that's going to happen, but we can't say yay or nay until we got final approval from CMHC. And unfortunately, it's a national program. The whole country is competing for the same funds to obtain, and funds obviously limited to government funds. So the whole idea is they securing construction loans. It's a lower interest, and that's what gives opportunity to lower the cost of construction, so we can pass on the savings to make it into more affordable units. We're not going to be able to tell you yes or no till we get final approvals from CMHC for this purpose.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, and Steve, Miss Andis.
Okay, thank you. Eric, if you'd like to ask one more question, and then I'd like to go back to the written questions because we've got just over a dozen of them, and I'd like to get through a few of those as well.
Okay, regarding the laneway, the current laneway that's there now behind the buildings where Dollarama is and Pet Rental, or whatever it's called, that existing laneway is really not wide enough for traffic going both ways. Is there plans to widen that?
There is no intent for traffic to go there behind the stores. So any traffic leaving our plaza, our building would be exiting immediately to the Kingston Road driveway. Or if the people wishing to go to the Recon property, they would carry on along the frontage of those stores.
So you're planning to have the traffic exit. So in other words, when they come out from the underground, they're going to turn off and go on to Kingston Road automatically.
That is correct, yes. There will be signage installed where you see the semi-circle. There will be signage posted for cars leaving with a clear direction of which way to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're
also, I'm sorry to cut in, we are also expanding part of it. Once again, if you look at the semi-circle, the central part of the circle makes the driveway lane much wider. You see it's getting wider. it is getting narrower again.
Yeah.
Of course, and we specifically keeping it narrow at north to make sure cars don't go that way, to make it not enticing for them to go.
To discourage people from going north. Yeah.
To discourage them from driving behind those stores.
Okay. Okay, so
Okay.
if we can loop
Yep.
you back, I'd like to get to some of the printed questions. So if you have more questions, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So I am going to disable your mic. Okay, we'll go to some of the written questions. Nicole, the next one is Nicole from Nicole Williams. I just feel like you didn't give the community time to have a say on this building. Whether we like it or not, you will be moving forward. So Nicole, this is the opportunity for the feedback on this particular development. And as I had mentioned at the beginning prior to Caitlin's presentation, we're here to receive your comments, to receive your feedback. There's also an opportunity for you to provide written comments through the town's IMO page, where this project information is posted, or via email directly to Caitlin Group, who is the town's planner processing this application. And again, staff will be writing a recommendation report that goes to a committee of council at the town of Ajax, and it will be council's decision on these applications. And that recommendation report will be going sometime in the spring. So if you do have specific questions or comments you want to make about this, you can either type them in here to the Q&A, or raise your hand and I can unmute you, or again you can offer your feedback in writing through the IMO page or via email to Caitlin. I'm just going to do a couple more of the written questions, and then I'll jump back to the attendees, and we'll unmute Umbreen after a couple of questions. So Kofi Teti is asking, assuming the project is approved, is the developer able to give timelines from construction to full commissioning of the building?
It's 2.5 years for the scheduled construction stage. So 2.5 years to get started and finished with starting occupancy of the building.
Okay, thank you. I will take one more of the written questions from Jan Pullins McMaster. Why has there not been a traffic study on the surrounding residential streets and the impact this building will have on them going forward? Max and Dennis?
There actually was a traffic study done on all the area around the building using certain radius wherever the standard rules apply. And one of the intersections, Weeks intersection, which is right in front of the building, was studied, and it's extensively studied in a traffic study. It was count of cars on this intersection, and it was taken into consideration. Now, the way traffic flows, there is not going to be many people who are going to go on Weeks Drive, because simply there is no reason for them to go. Obviously, most of the people living in the building will be going on Kingston and either east or west. And traffic study specifically looked at all the intersections in the area and counted the existing conditions of the intersections. It had some suggestions that with slight adjustments to the signalized, to the actual signals on intersection, it can be, situation can be improved. But the way it is right now, statistically, the traffic on Kingston Road is actually being reduced by about 1% every year. So by the time the development will be finished, in reality, it will be even less cars because more and more people starting to use public transportation. Now, the traffic study choose very conservative approach and look at it from perspective of traffic being increased by 0.5% every year. And even in this situation, it still didn't have any meaningful impact on existing conditions.
Just to clarify, there are some intersections in the vicinity that are fairly slow at peak hours. They are slow now before we do our development, and they are projected to be equally slow when we're done with our additional impact. because even though it's a large building, the nature of the traffic created by residential places, especially the one that's public transit oriented like that, is fairly small.
Okay. We will now go to Umbreen. I'm going to enable your microphone so you can unmute yourself now and ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much. This is Umbreen. Actually, I heard the whole conversation, and most of the question related to design and impact on the environment surrounding it has been answered. But my concern is, like, you are talking about 349 residential units. It means 349 families. And if we average 2 kids per family, there will be almost like 698 kids. And I don't see any school or in the surrounding which can accommodate this number of kids. I can see only Cataract Public School, which has only right now 30 to 35 students per class. And most of the classes are happening in portables in the extreme weathers, because I am one of the parent and I have seen kids in those conditions. And until we develop some kind of school for these 698 kids, approving this building to be built in this neighborhood, it will be kind of like, it will be unfair and unjust to the kids who are currently living in this area and to the parents too. So I don't know how you are gonna address that question, because I don't see this thing happening soon, that they are building a new school before building this residential 25-story building. Thank you so much.
Okay, Caitlin.
So through the circulation of these applications, all of these school boards would also be circulated and review the proposal, the number of units, the potential students that are generated by that application. And the school board is responsible for determining the capacity of the existing schools, whether or not it warrants a new school to be built, but the school boards do review and they do take into account the potential number of new students that may be generated, and they would assess if there are additional needs that need to be provided through potentially a new school, whether or not the students through this proposed development would be potentially bused to a nearby school. So that would all be reviewed through the review process.
Well, thank you, Umbreen. I'm going to disable your mic again, unless, okay. There we go. And I'm going to go to some of the written questions. From Jane McCarthy, where is visitor parking for this building going to be located?
Visitor parking is located on main level, second and third level.
Visitors on main and second.
Main and second level of the garage. So it's pretty much enclosed inside the building. There is only 2 outside parking spots. Otherwise, all the other parking spots, either being visitors or being for the residents themselves, they are enclosed inside the building. So it'll be main and second level for the visitor parking.
Okay, thank you. Next question came from Aaron O'Brien. Can we get a copy of the Heritage Impact Statement and Cemetery Conservation Plan? Caitlin?
Sure. The conservation plan is posted on the IMO page, and I'll double check if the Heritage Impact Statement, I don't believe it was, because I believe it was part of a previous submission, but that can be posted on the IMO page as well. So you can download it under the documents folder. So we'll have that uploaded within a few days.
Thank you. Anonymous, why did not the town of Ajax look at any development companies which could develop another northern subdivision instead of a single 25-story apartment complex? I'll respond to that one. The town doesn't go out and actively seek development companies. when landowners wish to develop or redevelop their properties, they come to the town and fill out applications and submit supporting plans and studies. And then we review those and write recommendations to council for their decision. So the choice of what is developed on a property is partially what is permitted on the property within the town's official plan and zoning bylaw, and based on also what the landowner and developer wishes to develop on that property. I think we'll take one more written question, and then we'll go back to the attendees, because I see we have a few that have their hands up. What is the future plan to address the amount of traffic exiting and entering from Kingston Road into the RioCan Center and apartments? Trying to exit from Wicks onto Kingston Road, traveling west is treacherous currently.
Okay.
It's similar to previous question, generally pertaining to traffic in the area, and Wicks intersection is pretty much the one with the highest problem at the moment with the left turn at peak hours. The development itself has nominal impact on that particular intersection. It has nominal impacts on other intersections. So in that sense, it is not in our power to make anything better or worse for those intersections. The continued popularity of public transit at some point will help. And what we can do from our end is make sure that people who choose to live in that building would be the people who embrace public transit and use it, actively use it. People who embrace active transit, being bicycling or walking, and actually use it. The only tool we have in our position to make sure people like that locate or relocate in the area is to not provide a sea of parking, because that would entice people to buy more cars and have 2-3 cars per family. We only have one parking spot per residential unit. So we are limiting car dependency for the tenants in the building, and that reduces any impact on the traffic in the area. We're providing ample bicycle storage spaces, over 200 in the building. And there is an adjacent, I believe, buffered bike lane on Kingston Road, which is connecting fairly nice regionally. So we are making sure people embrace that, and all other services located within the walking area for the residents will also contribute to reduced use of car.
Okay, thank you. I'll go back to the councillors and see if there's anyone, any of the councillors that wish to also ask a question or raise their hand. No, okay, good. Then we will go back to the participants, and Tom Blaney, you are next. I am going to enable your microphone so you can unmute yourself right now and ask your question.
Hi, I'm Tom Blaney's wife, Rosemary. Mike Sawchuk, you were talking about the impact on the landscape. I think people are missing or not mentioning the most important thing is the height of this building. If you're coming from Whitby going to Ajax, this thing is a monster. It's on the top of a hill. It's 25 stories. There is no other building around that area that's that high. Now, I'm not sure what the height of the condos are at the Pat Bailey Square. I think they're 20, but if you're standing there on the skating rink looking up, it's huge. So this is even bigger. And I know, Steph, you were talking about the corridor on Kingston. It's planned for these high rises, but Mike, this is a huge impact on the landscape. And I live in this area, and I don't want to see this huge monster skyscraper like they have in Toronto. As well, no disrespect, but you know, there is not going to be people riding bikes if they're got to go to, I mean, talking about the traffic, people taking buses. Yeah, there are people taking buses, but most people are driving to work. If you've got groceries to buy, you're not bringing a bike and buying a big thing of groceries. So you're going to be driving your car, and walking, you're not going to walk either. So I think you sort of miss the point on, you hope that people are going to be using public transit and walking and biking, but they won't. It's impossible. And the last thing I want to talk about, I had to endure for 2 years the construction noise at the Whitetail Plaza for 2 years. The hammering, the trucks, the sawing, whatever construction noise goes on. And that was the worst. And I'm not looking forward to this for 2 years, 2.5 years, you're saying. So that's what I have to say. And Tom wants to say something too. Thank you for your time. I hope you will consider what I'm saying.
We are noting all the questions, yes.
Anybody else talking about the height? Because nobody's even talking about it all. We've missed the point. That's the most important thing. There's going to be this impact on the landscape, like what Mike said, but he didn't mention anything about that. Thank you.
So I can jump in and just provide a quick response to that. So you're right. This is a 25-story building in a location where right now there's a house. So that is something very apparent, and that's why we did request the shadow studies. But you're also right that this is there is no way that this building won't be looming over the cemetery. So that's something we have to consider very carefully. And when we look specifically at the designation bylaw for the cemetery, it really protects three things. It protects the monuments themselves, the layout of the monuments and the burials, and also the park-like setting of that cemetery environment. So the height of this building will provide impacts on the park-like setting. So as I said, that's something that we have to consider as part of any recommendations on this application. There's also the reality of looking at the town's various priorities. And I myself personally, as the town's heritage planner, heritage is my priority. That's why I've been hired from the town. But there are other priorities as well in terms of increasing densities in our urban areas and ensuring better transportation and that sort of thing. So while the impacts of this project may be could have some implications on the overall sort of park-like setting of the cemetery, we have to try to balance that with the other benefits that it may bring. So just in closing, I want to stress that is something we have considered. It's not like we've just let that slip by without thinking about it. It's going to play largely into our recommendations on this. And that's part of the reason why we had all of the heritage impact assessment done at the front end of this project.
But it's not just the cemetery. It's just this looming giant building. Forget about, it's not the cemetery I'm worried about or I'm concerned about. It's just this huge skyscraper sticking up in the middle of like nowhere.
Yeah, and so that does play back into previous decisions made by the town. So as we mentioned, this site is specifically zoned to allow buildings of this height. And the reason for that is because it's along a major corridor. So when you really factor in all of the priorities for the town in terms of ensuring density along its corridors and transportation and that sort of thing, these are the areas where you are going to see the larger buildings. So you mentioned yourself Pat Bailey Square, and those buildings are 25 stories. Again, that's right along a major corridor, or two major corridors, Harwood running north-south and then Bailey running east-west. So similarly, Kingston Road is the highest order transit road that we do have in the town. And that's why decisions were made in the past to allow buildings of this height, because if there is somewhere where we think it's appropriate, it's on sites like this.
But do we want that? Do we want our town looking like a New York City, skyscrapers all over the place? Do we want that? Because I don't. It's too overwhelming. Sure, it's good for the town to, do all their planning and their corridor, rights and stuff. But I don't want that. It doesn't look good.
And that's fair. Everybody is going to have a different opinion on what their preferred sort of style of community is. And the reality that we have to face in Ajax is that we are a growing community and we have to handle growth somehow. So as planners, for many years, we've been working to implement plans that will accommodate growth in a managed and coordinated way. And as I said, knowing that there will be growth in the future, we had to determine where that growth was best suited. And it is along these corridors. So we do recognize that it's not everyone's cup of tea in terms of having these large buildings. But if we are considering these large buildings in the town, which we are, this is one of the places that they should be occurring.
Okay, one more quick comment from Tom here, and then we'll let the other people talk. I'm still concerned about where construction traffic is going to go. And as well, I don't know if anybody's been around Dollarama on Saturday. If you're talking about people coming in, most people will be coming back home along the 401, either on Saturday or working days. And for them to drive around that way, I'm just telling you, it's going to be a nightmare.
On Salem.
Yeah. No, in the plaza itself. Anyways, we'll sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, we will go to the next typed question, and then I was going to go back to Keith Sarr, but it looks like he took his hand down and he has a few more questions.
Sorry, that was me, Steph. I took his hand down by mistake. I thought that was the previous hand. My mistake.
Okay, so I'm going to read the anonymous question right now, and then Keith, I'm going to unmute you, and we can deal with your questions. You've got the next 3 questions that were typed out. So a question from anonymous is, what has been the environmental impact on the Southern Marsh, Peacock Farms, and the Highland Farms apple orchard, the wildlife impact as well? Perhaps we can start with Caitlin.
Sure. So through any development application that the town receives, we do require a pre-consultation meeting to be held. And through that meeting, we would identify any types of studies and reports that are required to be submitted with the formal application. And we would review surrounding areas. Through the review of this particular proposal, the immediately adjacent lands, so to the south is existing residential and the Whitetail Plaza, and to the west is the existing Ryokan Plaza. To the north and east is the Peacock land. So all of those lands were reviewed, and none of those lands have environmentally sensitive features or located immediately adjacent to the subject lands. So through the pre-consultation meeting, the town did not identify an environmental impact study to be submitted for this property. I believe the Highland Farms apple orchard is further west of this property. And then the Southern Marsh is further east. So there's the Peacock Farms lands and then the marsh. So through the town's initial review, those environmental areas were not immediately adjacent to the property. Therefore, an environmental impact study was not required.
Through policy, we will require environmental studies for natural features, wildlife habitat, hydrologic features, if development is occurring within 120 meters of such features. This particular development was outside that buffer area, so therefore didn't require. So Keith, I am going to unmute you. Oh, no, sorry, hold on one second. There we go. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Okay.
And then we can deal with your 3 questions.
Okay, thanks very much. I guess, yes, I've written the questions. I just want to say that, there is over overarching concern here. I mean, I know staff and developers may be inclined to discount our residential concerns with the old adage, oh, it's just NIMBYism, not in my backyard. Well,
Lost audio.
Yeah, Keith, we lost your audio again.
justified.
Sorry, we lost audio just.
How's that now?
Last sentence or so.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, okay now, yes.
Yes.
All right. I'll stop spinning around in my chair. This issue of we're a lot of residents present here today, and there are hundreds of them actually concerned about this development. It is NIMBYism in the sense that we feel completely justified in this case because a tower of this height in this location looming over us would displace all semblance of backyard privacy for those of us who've lived here for 30 years and some perhaps less, but either way, placing their faith in Ajax as a place to live and comfortably exist on our modest property where privacy normally is afforded by a 6-foot good neighbor fence. This tower looming over us was never predicted, and clearly this is an application to amend the official plan. So the official plan couldn't have contemplated the sort of plate or footprint of a tower like this going in this particular site. So let's be clear, we are all very much opposed to this property going in. And we need assurance from the town that the traffic through our subdivision will be managed, that the privacy in our backyard will be considered, and ideally that this proposal will be required to be changed to be a lot lower, not so many floors. And we understand there's a need for rental accommodation. It isn't that we resist that. It's that we want something like the post house down the road or the development at Westney and Highway 2, similar types of development for that are quite reasonable. We wouldn't fight.
We lost the audio again.
We are adamant that this really needs revision because it's not fair on folks that have lived here all this time, contributing somewhere in the order of 45 to 50 million in property taxes since the first home was occupied in 1987. We deserve much more consideration than this current design affords.
Okay, Keith, thank you for that comment. We want to address some of your written questions as well. The risk, your first written question, the report I read said there is a risk that the original cemetery perimeter may exceed the current lot boundary and consequently human remains could be disturbed during excavations. No longer a worry, question mark. Maybe, I know Max and Dennis did speak to this in response to a similar earlier question, but maybe Mike Sawchuk, you wanted to elaborate further?
Sure. So as Max and Dennis spoke to earlier, there was a stage 1 and a stage 2 archaeological assessment already completed. And through the recommendations of those reports, it was stated that further work was going to happen. And the reason for that is because anytime you're doing excavation along the border of a historic cemetery, there is a chance that that you could run into human burials from back during the time of operation for that cemetery. So I believe Max and Dennis spoke to it earlier, but currently the plan is to have a licensed archaeologist on site to monitor the excavation activities and make sure that if anything is found at any point, that's addressed.
Okay. Keith, oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong tab. So Keith, the next written question you have, I think is
I think I covered it in the commentary I just made. That is the one about 116 registered watch participants representing 327 residents nearby have disliked this concern on our website, and therefore we feel the design should be of a much lower tower.
Okay.
The next issue was to do with traffic flow, which has been touched upon, but there's an issue in the report I read where the Walmart light, the left turn lane or storage length of the eastbound left turn lane may be exceeded in peak periods. And so this not mentioned in that report that I read was that the spill would therefore block a through lane. How can this be acceptable given Kingston Salem is an accident nightmare already, and your planner already talked about that at the very beginning of this meeting?
I can address that. Starting from the end point regarding the traffic. Once again, when you read through the report, the traffic analysis, please make sure to read through the 3 different stages. There is existing condition, there is a projected in this existing condition a few years down the road, and then there is the same condition with our development overlapped on it with the traffic resulting from our development. The concerns you are describing, they're existing at the moment, and our development not the additional traffic we're going to be creating does not compoundly increase those concerns or make any delays significantly more. There are some changes, but those are marginal. So this is an existing condition, and nobody likes to be stuck in traffic. Nobody likes to waste their time, and it's also a safety concern, but it is something that's existing at the moment. There are no ways to improve on it as it is now. Otherwise, our consultant will come up with recommendations to make it better now. There is a recommendation for a traffic light timing adjustment that will eradicate some of those problems or make some of those times less of a delay. That's a minor tweak that my understanding region is undertaking periodically. So that's something that will be taken care of by the regional municipality that's responsible for those issues, and that monitors traffic flows on a periodic basis and adjust traffic lights accordingly. But there is no further structural changes required or recommended either for existing condition or for our future condition we're going to add our building. In regards to the height of the building, which is a bigger concern, it's understandable. Nobody likes to live their life and then all of a sudden a huge tower is built right next to them. However, we have to keep in mind that life is change, and everything in life changes. This particular area is regional center, slated for intensification. And intensification already happened. Your backyards already are within a few meters away from major regional artery, from major commercial activity. This whole area has been redesignated in regional official plans and town of Felix official plans to be the prime priority center for high density, high rise intensification. The height we are proposing goes in line with the plan policies. This particular area has an existing policy that's calling for unlimited density, which is only found in the places which are considered to be top priority for a high-rise, high-density intensification, to make sure that we are not going to drown in traffic, to make sure that the current existing high rapid public transit is being taken, is being used by the future residents, to make sure that the increase in population is directed into right areas where it can be sustained, where there's sufficient infrastructure. So we understand your concerns, but our proposal goes in line with whatever town of Ajax and region of Durham envisioned for that particular street. So anything to the east and to the west of this property is envisioned to be with the buildings which are 25-story high. That was decided numerous years ago through the public process of official plan review, and that was circulated through all town of Ajax residents, and they all had an opportunity to comment on it, and it was passed by regional councils, town of Ajax council, regional councils, and ultimately by the province.
And from practical point of view, if this building will be a 5-story high, 10-story high, it wouldn't make a difference because somebody can peek into somebody's backyard from 3rd floor, from a 4th floor. So from point of view of privacy, if somebody is peeking in somebody else's backyard from 25th floor or from 5th floor, it makes no difference. So if somebody really wants to have such a privacy, obviously the best way to do is to be located somewhere where there is no tall building whatsoever. But unfortunately, this whole area of town is designated to have tall buildings. It's only a matter of time when they're going to start appearing. It's another 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, because town of Edge is growing by about 2,000 residents every year. All those people have to live somewhere.
Right, but can I speak in response? I think we understand the need for high rises. We have high rises down Harwood. We've had them for many, many years, and high rises of that size.
Yeah, your audio
We lost audio again.
And most perhaps 15 floors, 10 and 15 floors seems to be reasonable. So can you hear me all right?
Yeah, right now, yes.
Okay. So this is the first, other than the Bailey Square, where a high rise of this size and height, it's both the footprint as well as the height, that is gargantuan compared to anything else we've done outside of Bailey Square in Ajax. I've lived here 30 years and I've never seen anything like it. So this is directionally a vast move forward, if we call it forward. Why is that being done on the rise above the Carruthers Creek, where, you know, as one approaches Ajax, this ghastly building you're proposing would be a monstrous hilltop eyesore, monstrous flipping of the finger to Whitby, basically, because it stands out in terrible stark contrast.
It definitely stands out. It stands out. It is designed in accordance with the current municipal policies provided for in the official plan, which is 25-story high buildings. You personally dislike the building. It's a matter of personal like or dislike. I don't like single-story houses, yet I live in one. It's a matter of personal taste. The fact of the matter is it is complying with existing policy in terms of height. Another thing that should be considered is for all the residents of Ajax, housing attainability, I believe, not only for residents of Ajax, but anybody in Canada at this moment, housing attainability is a big issue. Whether it's a crisis or not, somebody may debate in the newspapers, but it's definitely a huge issue. When you build a housing in a smaller form factor, it is simply more expensive because the economy of scale is not there. When you build a house of that size, I mean, residential development of that size, the economy of scale brings the cost of the units down, which directly translates into cheaper rents for people who are going to be living there for decades to come. When you build a building of this size, it directly translates into more energy savings per floor plate. So people will be spending less on their hydro bill, and there's going to be less environmental impact from that as well. So all those things considered, we believe that existing policy Ajax official plan that calls for those buildings and stimulates this kind of development in that particular regional center is actually right on the roll.
Well, policy may permit it, but it's in stark contrast to everything that surrounds it right now. Down in Bailey Square, you've got apartments around it, rec center, plazas left and right. There's no residential neighborhood abutting this that development. But here, how can the town totally ignore what is on the opposite side of the road? It's just inconceivable that we would impose such a huge edifice looming over individual family homes. And that is the contrast. We, as I said, and I repeat myself, are not opposed to a reasonable height apartment building. We realize with the new distribution centers north on Salem, accommodation is going to be needed for people. so fine, and we understand the corridor that is commercial and high density residential designated. But this is too stark a contrast to expect reasonable residents to contend with. Can we get some comfort from our councillors that they care about this?
So am I, okay, so if we still have Councillor Joanne Dyes and Councillor Ashmead Khan, looks like they are still on this open house. If either of you would like to respond, and then I would like to move back to the written questions because we do have 20 minutes left. Joanne, did you? Councillor Dyes, yes.
Thank you. So we're here this evening because we want to hear what the public has to say and what your concerns are, Keith. And so we're listening to all of that. And all of these points will be taken into consideration. And we also have to weigh what we can and can't do as well. So yes, we do have concerns, and we will be speaking to them when the time is right. But right now we want to really consider what your concerns are. And ask it. I don't know if that is what you want to hear, or if I'm answering your question.
Well, I would like to know if there will be more public consultation before this is approved. I don't know. Maybe the legislative requirements allow for just one, but can we expect more public meetings before this gets nailed flat?
Yes, when it comes before what they call Committee of the Whole of Council for Community Affairs and Planning, as we call it, that is an open public meeting where you can ask questions and address both council and the proponent.
And so that'll be the last chance. There'll be no other public consultation, given the significant questions I think that residents have raised here.
Well, all of your questions that you've raised this evening, staff have taken everything down. It's all written down, and that is all going to be considered through the writing of the report. So we will see all of those comments as well. So yes, all of that information has to be correlated, and then it's presented to council.
In other situations, such as the development of the Galea McGinty properties adjacent to Cataraqui School, additional meetings were convened recognizing the contentious nature of the development as it was originally designed. Can we not expect something similar here?
I can't answer that question for you unless staff can, and I don't know if you'll be able to either. I really don't have any idea of what happened with that.
We'll take that back and talk to senior management.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Keith,
thanks, Keith.
I'm going to disable your microphone. Okay, we will go back to the written questions. We'll do a few more written questions, and then we have two more people with their hands up, Eric O'Brien and Shannon Smolsky. So we'll get to you in a moment. Another question from anonymous attendee: why not a low-rise apartment complex instead of a monstrous 25-story? I think we've spoken to that a couple of times. It is dependent partly on what the developer or property owner is looking to build. So they are looking to build a 25-story on this property. The next one was from Keith. So low rent apartments will likely be appealing to young families with children. Hard to resist jaywalking across Kingston to get to Cataraqui Public School during the morning and end of school rush. Why is a bridge over Kingston not included in the plan? Well, there is a signalized crosswalk, not even a block away. And then Max and Dennis, maybe did you want to address this question?
Again, as you said, there is a signalized crosswalk, and I don't know what else to say. So, I mean, there is always somebody who can be jaywalking, and doesn't matter if people living in a house, in an apartment, or in 5-story apartment, in 25, it's not gonna change anything. So, in this sense, I don't think town would want to build a special bridge for some kids to go over the Kingston if there is already proposed pedestrian connection.
I believe some of the people get a bit of exaggerated idea of number of kids that are going to be living in this building, perhaps because the on-site daycare is proposed for the convenience of the tenants living in a building, but we're not foresee the whole 349 apartments being with kids or 2 kids, as somebody was suggesting. Based on statistical average, you will probably have 20, 25 kids, maybe 30 kids of a school age living in the building. So some of the older ones will be in a high school that will have to ride public transportation to get to wherever the nearest high school is. So in that sense, I don't believe that would be a concern. I mean, safety is a priority for everybody involved. In this case, not for the tenants, not only for the tenants of the building, but also for people driving on Kingston. But we don't foresee it as being a major source of children running wild.
And just sort of further to the question about building a bridge over Kingston Road, that is not something that's contemplated, like a pedestrian bridge over Kingston Road, not something contemplated in our capital budget or our transportation demand management plan for the town. If there was a need and warrant for that, then our transportation department would certainly look into it. Again, we're recording this question, and this is something that we'll respond to in a little more detail and have our transportation people respond to as part of the recommendation report that'll be going forward later in the spring. I'm going to go to the next question. When people are traveling eastbound, how do people get across to this unit? I think we answered that question earlier.
There is a mapping of suggested traffic flow as part of the traffic analysis and traffic study. In some of the appendices, there is a traffic count of how many cars are going to access the site which way. So that kind of shows what statistically is envisioned to access site through the existing signalized intersection going to the Walmart or through other sites, etc.
Okay. We'll go to the next question. Fire safety concerns and EMS access will surely require a north entrance to this property. Why is there no provision for such an access?
The proposed fire route access is shown on a site plan on the side of the building with sufficient turning radius for safety and fire trucks. That's done in compliance with current requirements for safety access for fire trucks, EMS, etc.
Maybe I'll just.
The additional northern access is not required to address this concern.
I can just add, through the review of the application, the town's fire and emergency services would be or has been and would be through the process circulated to provide their comments. So they have reviewed the proposed fire route, and they have certain requirements that they ensure are met for any proposed development in the town.
Okay, thank you. So we do have about 12 minutes left. I think we're able to go a little over time. I'm sure the link won't expire at 9. So what I'll do is I'm going to go back to the raised hands right now. We have Eric, Umbreen, and then Keith, and I will limit you to 5 minutes so that we can ensure that all 3 of you get a time to speak. So Eric, I am starting with you. Oh, I think you should have, okay, you should have the ability to unmute yourself now, Eric.
Yeah, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Soil samples. I'm assuming that you hired a firm to go in and drill down to see what kind of soil was in the ground.
Yep.
Can I ask how far you went down to determine what soil was like?
The drilling was down to,
I believe I believe it was about 15 meters, right?
no.
It's hard for me to tell you right now. I have a report in front of me, but in accordance with the design of the building, in accordance with the height and the weight, there is certain formula how deep they're supposed to go. I can't tell you this particular second, but they've done it in accordance with what our structural engineer would require to design the building to make sure it's going to be structurally sound.
It could have been 15 meters, but I'm not sure. The depth they're going through is definitely deeper than the proposed underground parking. And then they have to go deeper to make sure that the underlying ground can support the weight of the building, because part of the design of the foundation is based on density of the underground soil. So to make sure how dense the soil is, they have to reach the soil and go through it. So I believe it was 15 meters, but we're not sure. It's part of the hydrogeological and geotechnical reports, which I believe, Kathleen can correct us, is part of the available materials on the website.
Yes, I believe I can double check when I upload the heritage impact statement. I can ensure that the hydrogeological and soil report are also there.
Because the underground garage is probably going to go down, what, 3-4 stories into the ground?
It's two stories.
2 stories.
2 stories?
It is almost none on the west side, and it is 2 stories on the, sorry, it is almost nothing on the east side, and it is 2 stories on the west side of the building, because the side is sloping.
So that's about 25, 30 feet into the ground then, correct?
On one end, on west.
On one end, yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's just that my engineering hat has come on when I did civil engineering. That's why I was asking that question. So,
Okay.
Talk about that.
Okay. You have a couple of minutes
Okay,
left.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, Umbreen, I am going to be enabling your microphone. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you so much for giving me a chance again. So my only concern before I raise the concern about number of kids per class and per school, and I am sorry, I do not buy this idea that only 20 to 25 kids will be coming from that building, because this is a residential area, and the new parents and new families will be getting will be living there, and all of them have the kids. So there will be more than about 500 kids who will be coming to the school. And secondly, the response which has been given regarding traffic safety and crossing and jaywalking is totally inadequate. So the new building will create high risk environment actually for jaywalking, because Kingston Road, this road is quite wide. I'm not talking only about the children, but I'm also talking about the senior citizens who are living here, because crossing this wide road, it's very difficult. It's 60 to 70 kilometer per hour speed road, this Kingston Road. And without having any plan or layout, how these people will be crossing the road, allowing this permit and to build this building, I will again say this is really quite dangerous, actually putting the lives of so many people at risk. So I don't know, like I actually don't. I totally understand. Totally agree with Keith. Whatever the Keith has raised the point, such a height of the building and all these concerns are actually choosing this place for high-rise building is quite ununderstandable for me. You give examples of Bailey and Harvard. That is not exactly the same environment where this building is being created, will be created in the future. So you can take it as a comment or take it as a concern, because until or unless these concerns are not given any consideration, this permit should not be allowed, and this building should not be allowed to move forward. Thank you so much.
Good, thank you, Umbreen. I am going to disable your mic again, and we are, last person with their hand up here is Keith. So Keith, I am enabling your microphone. There you go. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, are you hearing me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. I'd like to come back to, and Breen makes an excellent point about, people trying to get across the highway. To underline that, let's make completely clear, the facilities that serve young families, or even just couples for that matter, living in these apartments are all south of Kingston Road.
I think we lost audio again.
We've got a lot of shopping in the plaza, but when you think Carruthers Trail, there's a nice area to wander along down along Carruthers Creek. We have Miles Park with its facilities appealing to families. And of course, we have the public school. We have a gym a little further through the subdivision. People are going to want to get across that road, never mind the medical facilities in the Whitetail Plaza. We also have a lot of vacant commercial property in the Whitetail Plaza right now that isn't going to go away very quickly. And now adding another 9 units in the bottom of this building doesn't seem to make economic sense to me. We're not going to pull into an apartment tower to go buy our provisions. So there seems to be a lot of weakness around the economic viability of some of that aspect. But back to the bridge, people need to get across to get to the trail, to get to Mars Park, to get to the school, to get to the medical services in Whitetail. And they're not going to be inclined to walk up the road to the traffic light and then back down again. Think too, you mentioned eastbound, or you mentioned transit. We're going to have, what, 1,000 people in this building, and they're not going to have many cars because you haven't provided much parking. You're assuming there'll be less than a car per family, or maybe just one per family. I'm not sure of the math, but either way, it's few. So you're expecting a lot of people to depend on transit. And that means both east and westbound. Now, getting to the eastbound light, or eastbound stop rather, that is just across the road east of Wicks, is going to be very tempting for people to jaywalk across that very busy, wide main artery of Kingston Road.
Did we lose the audio?
I rest my case. It's hopelessly inadequate without some sort of crossing, bridge, tunnel, or some other means by which this thousands of people can easily move across Kingston Road. And better still, reduce it to 500 people, and maybe your approach to use the traffic light mitigates the risk. So lower the height of the building, once again, is the right solution, or build the bridge.
If you were to follow your logic, then limiting it to 20 people would be even better, because then 20 less than 500 and less than 1,000. I follow your logic, but unfortunately that's not what's happening, and we have influx of people that want to live in town of Ajax, and they have to live somewhere. Now, speaking of crossing the Kingston, there is a signalized intersection about 150 to 120 meters from a front step, from a front door of a building. I don't think any other place would have it any closer than this. So really, it's a matter of about 1 minute of walking to this signalized intersection and then crossing the Kingston and going in either direction people are supposed to go. So
when it's minus 30, people are not going to do that. They're going to run across the highway.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to go walk to the bridge. They will try to jump right in front of the car because it's 2 meters away from them. So you either have to follow your logic or you don't follow your logic. You have to choose which way you want to go. So it's providing you with as close as possible access to signals intersection, and you're still not happy. I don't know what else to tell you. The town of Ajax has a specific department called Transportation Department, and they have special rules to follow and see which way town's roads supposed to be designed. They looked into it, spent a lot of time and effort, and concluded it's adequate. So, there it is.
I think we lost audio again.
Yeah, Keith.
And a profit motive and not consideration for the best interests of the existing residents or the residents in the tower, frankly.
Maybe we are driven by profit motive, especially with the proposal being affordable housing with units starting from $700 a month. So yes, we will be contributing $1.5 million a year towards subsidized rent in your particular area. So
your particular kids can live there cheaper. Let's put it this way.
So I don't think we are profit motivated. We are reason motivated, and that's why we are designing our proposal to meet all existing policies at all levels of government and existing conditions on the ground.
And please have more consideration for the existing residents who you're going to impose this huge tower upon. It's not reasonable.
We understand your concern. We can agree with your concern because you personally don't like towers. That's understandable. So
I personally, this is a much bigger, who in the whole wide world would be comfortable with this being imposed upon them anywhere?
Okay,
some people like towers.
People who live in Kingston.
I'm going to interrupt everyone here. Keith, we thank you very much, and we appreciate your point of view. And I appreciate Max and Dennis for the conversation as well. We do have 2 more people with their hands up. It is 9 o'clock, and Keith, we do have your written comments. I know there are some questions that we haven't got to yet either, but if they are questions that we haven't already answered, then we will be providing answers to and follow up with everyone on this open house. But if everyone is okay, I am willing, like maybe we can go another 5 or 10 more minutes. It doesn't seem like the link has expired, so we'll go another 5 or 10 more minutes and give Keith and Shannon the ability to also speak, and then we'll just wrap up the open house. So Keith, sorry that I interrupted you, but if it's all right, I'd like to give others the opportunity to speak as well. Okay, I can't hear Keith. If you are speaking, I can't.
Oh, sorry. Am I still live? Okay, I was typing, but my question is, I need to know what the process is to fight this. Going through, is it, what are they don't call it the OMB anymore, but we as residents are simply not going to lie down and let this happen. What do we have to do to appeal?
So process-wise, I mean, there's no decision made yet. So process-wise, if there are additional comments you want to submit, please do put them in writing. We do prefer all our comments to be received in writing, then they become part of the public record. That's part of the recommendation report. You can speak to your counselors. You can participate in the public meeting where we bring the recommendation report forward for council's consideration and their decision. If you are not happy with whatever the decision ends up being, then you do have the ability to appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal.
Yeah, just so you know, Steph, I've sent in a 4-page documented commentary enumerated with all of the comments and more, and recommendations and more than what we've talked about today. I've also recorded a 5-minute separate presentation of additional issues orally on your voicemail at 11 o'clock this morning, all on behalf of Cataraqui Neighborhood Watch, not just me personally. And those comments have been circulated to our members representing overall.
We lost audio.
We did, we lost audio again. Okay, Keith.
Residents here who are registered who are registered in the watch, and it is a substantive issue shared by many, not just Keith Saar.
Okay, and thank you very much for clarifying that, Keith. So we're going to move on to James. I think we lost the other person, but okay, so I'm going to disable your mic there. Thank you very much, Keith. Okay, so James, I am enabling your microphone. You should be able to speak now. James?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Oh, great. That picture had to come up. I've been a 30-year resident on Wicks Drive. I guess my question is, has there been any new studies with regards to traffic flow on Wicks as a result of this proposal?
The traffic study took into consideration the intersection of Wicks and Kingston Road.
Yes.
There is no noticeable traffic is expected to go from that development through Wicks because there is no points of interest for people to travel through Wicks. It's a lower tier road.
Okay.
The impact calculated by the potential increase of this building traffic on Kingston Road does result in pretty similar condition to whatever it is now in the future once the building is completed. It's part of the traffic report. The traffic report was done over the last 2 years twice. We had one consultant conduct the report, then the town of Ajax wanted further study and revision, and an addendum was done by ICOM to look into additional questions raised by the town and address all those questions. So that's part of the report. I believe both of them are available online.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think I'm going to direct it back to the town. I appreciate you guys answering that question for me, but I'm going to go back to the town and the planning. So you foresee as Ajax that there will be no increase to traffic flow on Wicks Drive due to this apartment? Somebody from Ajax? Hello?
Yep, sorry, just unmuting my microphone. So this application is reviewed by our transportation section, and we can certainly, we've taken your question down, and we will review that and bring that back to the transportation section. In terms of, I guess, additional traffic flow, as the applicants indicated, the traffic study did look at the traffic coming from that proposed development. And the town's transportation section would review those traffic studies and provide comment in terms of, I guess, traffic in existing neighborhoods. That would be something that, you know, the town, I guess, traffic coming from the Highway 401, going up Salem Road, cutting through that neighborhood. Unfortunately, the town can't necessarily, I guess, control who's going where. So people cutting through that neighborhood may not necessarily live at this proposed development. I believe there are, or have been in the past, fairly recently, no left turn lanes or traffic controls during rush hour, that type of thing that have been implemented. So we can certainly bring your question back to the transportation section and have them review that again and just determine, you know, with traffic levels along Kingston Road and Salem, whether or not that warrants additional restrictions or signage on turning into the existing neighborhood.
Well, if you're going to be recording this, and what I would like the transportation department to look at is, I believe there's going to be an increase of traffic due to parents dropping kids off at the school. I believe there will be an increase of traffic when Salem Road and Kingston Road are all busied up and the left-hand turning lane into the plaza to get into this apartment is all buggered up. They will come through down Wicks and turn left onto Kingston Road to get into the apartment. Now, I've been here for 30 years. Speed has not been reduced on this Wicks Drive. Stop signs have not been put in. And now you're telling me to accept the possibility of more traffic through our neighborhood. I mean, if we look at the plan, you can obviously see I can turn left right now and go into that driveway of Rico, which would be the same driveway as that apartment from Wicks Drive. What's going to stop a person from not, hey, I'm not going up to Salem and Kingston. I'm not going to turn in at the plaza at the lights. I'm going to go through Wicks, turn a quick left there, and bang, I'm in my apartment.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
That particular left turn from Wicks is the slowest point to actually turn, largest delay on an intersection in the existing conditions. So a person who wants to get to their apartment would waste time going that route. And if not on first,
But I go that way to go to Walmart. Sorry for cutting you off. I go that way, turn left.
Because you live on Wicks. So for somebody who travels from anywhere else, it would be easier not to cut through Wicks to make a left turn on Kingston to get into the apartment. It would be easier for them to follow Harvard, Kingston Road, Westney, Kingston Road, and then use whatever means to access this development, but not cut through Wicks Drive, because Wicks Drive at the moment is the slowest point during peak hours.
Well, I'm gonna have to disagree with you that, because we got many Whitby residents that come through here every day, every morning.
But they're turning right.
But I'm telling you,
located west from the intersection, right? So in this sense, if it would be located east, I would agree with you, yes, but it's located west.
Because
So
the left turn from Wicks Drive is the slowest point identified in our traffic study for the whole area.
It's not practical for somebody to go this way. They're going to be waiting extra 10 minutes. What's the point? Might as well just
Well,
go.
you know what? You make 100%, you make perfectly good sense, but I've been here 30 years and I've seen it. And I'm telling you right now, the traffic will increase on Wicks Drive, and we have nothing in place to slow things down or stop it in Wicks. And that's what concerns me for 30 years. And here is the town adding more vehicles, more kids to our school, cars coming and dropping their kids off with no consideration to our speed or our stopping. And this has been going on for years. Anyways, it's not about you guys. It's more about me with the town.
Okay, thank you, James. We've noted that, and we will address it as part of the recommendation report.
I certainly hope you do. I really do. I mean, it's about time that, as Keith said, that the residents over here, get what we deserve. We put in millions of dollars in property taxes, and we can't get stop signs.
Okay, thank you. I believe that Shannon, you had your hand up, but I don't see your hand up anymore. If you are still interested in speaking, just raise your hand again and we'll go to you. Otherwise, Tom Blaney has his hand up as well. So we're at 9:11. I think, okay, Tom, if we can, we'll take you for about 5 minutes, and then I'll scan the questions and see if there are any sort of new and different questions that we haven't answered yet. And then we'll go to wrapping up the open house. So Tom, there we go. Your mic should be enabled.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. I live around the corner from Jim. I totally agree that although the apartment building itself that traffic won't come through here, but the log jam at Salem and Kingston Road, which already makes people come in through our neighborhood, is just going to increase. Now, this is the people that come, I think, basically from north of the casino down through Alexander's Crossing to get to Salem Road. That's the kind of traffic that comes through our neighborhood. Now, right now, there's no left turn at Wicks in the morning. There's a cop there and he picks them off left, right, and center. But everybody's coming in through Galilea and then up through Knowles and back onto Wicks. And if you stand at the corner of Wicks and Horton and Knowles in the morning where there isn't a stop sign in Wicks, you won't believe the amount of traffic going through there. As well, not just commuter traffic, but traffic to Cataraqui School. So this is probably an issue for the counselors than it is for the developers here. But just one more thing for the developers. Where do you see the construction traffic going in to the building?
The construction traffic would arrive from east to the site and leave to the west, because you don't want to have large trucks turning around and making a left turn on Kingston.
Right, but will it go right into the site, or will it go down to, the bottom of the hill and go in that way? Where is it going to go?
It would access the site somehow through Kingston, directly through Kingston, without impacting neighboring properties.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so directly into the
It's
site.
a valid point because the construction cycle is 2.5 years. So obviously we have to make sure that the construction traffic is obeying those rules and not interferes with anybody around.
So most of your trucks will come from the east then?
They would have to, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I don't see that. Like, I think I could come along the 401 and come in from Whitby, or how are they going to get there? I would think most of them will get off at Salem. And
It really depends on where they're
depends
coming
where they're
from. I mean,
coming
if it's
from,
a concrete truck, then they would exit the highway wherever they're exiting it to approach the site properly. It's a common issue for any kind of extensive development to make sure that construction traffic flows smoothly. So that's part of the construction traffic management plan.
Mhm.
But it is a valid plan.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. All right, we have no more hands up. I think all the questions look fairly similar. All the remaining questions in the Q&A look similar to questions we've already addressed. Mike, do you want to just confirm that for me as well?
Sure, I'm just having a read through now. I believe you're right. Just give me a moment to sort of flip through everything. Yeah, I think we have addressed in some way any of the questions that remain. And if there are specific details within any of these questions that haven't been addressed, we will make note of those and respond to those in the final recommendation report.
Okay. All right, well, thank you, everyone. And thank you for hanging in. Oh, we have more hands up. Okay, so we do have more hands up. What I will do, just to give everyone an appropriate amount of time, is Nicole Williams is new. She hasn't spoken yet, I don't believe. So what I will do is, if everyone is willing to hang in there for another 5 minutes, we'll let Nicole speak, and then we will wrap this up.
Good evening, and thank you for taking my question. It's actually not even a question, it's more of a comment. I just wanted to be on record that I am a concerned community member, and like a lot of other individuals have said, I do not feel that the town, the councillors, or anybody has really taken into consideration the impact of the existing community. I feel it's unfair that, during this time, just outside of the new year, the holidays, you guys are throwing this together and not even committing to have additional open forums where us as community members can voice our concerns. I truly do not think that you have thought this through. We are not opposed to the building. We are opposed to the height. I think that 25 stories is excessive. I don't think that you've really thought through the impact it's going to have to the existing school community, as well as to the privacy and to the flow and the layout of our existing impact and the existing footprint in which we have. The traffic, there's so many things that I can list. So I don't want to take too much time, but I did want to be on record that I am not happy with this proposal, and I do not feel our councillors and the town has truly considered the existing residents. Thank you.
Okay, Nicole, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Please feel free to also provide your comments in writing on the IMO page. Okay, so we are almost at 9:20. I think to just respect everyone's time, we can wrap up the open house. Keith and Umbreen, I do know that you have your hands up. If you can you kindly submit additional comments in writing? And we will address them as part of the staff report. Okay, so thank you everyone for participating. I will officially be closing this session of the public open house. Thank you to the counselors who were in attendance and to all the attendees and participants, and to town staff, to Max and Dennis Tarski, and to Mike Manette, who also participated. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.